Good afternoon, all my rural Xers out there. This is Eric, the rural Xer, here with you, coming to you from downtown Toccoa, Georgia. And the reason we are over here today on this partially beautiful Saturday afternoon is right behind me. As you can probably tell, this is the old Toccoa train station, but the main reason that we're here is because of there is a museum inside dedicated to several regiments of paratroopers that trained here in Toccoa, Georgia, back during World War II. I'm sure there were several of those regiments that were probably involved in the Normandy landing, D-Day. And but anyway, that is what we're here for, is that museum, the Currahee Military Museum, right there. Currahee Military Museum. If I'm saying that right, I'm probably botching that up completely, but that is the name of the museum that we are here to see. And as I said, it is dedicated to several regiments of paratroopers that trained here in Toccoa. Honestly, I didn't even know that there was a training facility here. I think it was an Army training facility. It was, I think, Fort Toccoa, if I remember right. And we'll probably find out once we get in the museum. We'll probably find out more information about all of that. In fact, they say that it's actually still open. I don't know that it's an active military base here in Toccoa, but it might be an actual museum itself or something. We'll find out more about it. But anyway, come along and join us if you will. Well, we finally made it into the museum now, but they took us on a little bit of a tour, a pre-tour of the museum before we even got started. And where we came in at is way back down yonder at the other end of the train station. And but they brought us up here, so I take it that we start in this area here, which is more about local musicians, some Cherokee Indian history as well in the area, in the Toccoa area in Stevens County, which is where Toccoa is located. I didn't even know that until today, but Stevens County is the name of the county that Toccoa sits in. And like I said, I wasn't even aware that there was, and it's called, by the way, Camp Toccoa, and it housed several regiments of paratroopers that they trained for World War II. Now, Camp Toccoa is not active military camp anymore, but it is open to the public. They have their own museum. From what a couple of young ladies was giving me quite a bit of history of the Toccoa area and Camp Toccoa, and that's what they said, that it was open to the public. And if we have time, we might try to go out there today. Don't know that we will, because it's already almost 12 o'clock, but in the afternoon. But we may try to go over there and see if we can see what we can see over there. There is a big plain, and there is a museum over there as well. I don't know how much of the grounds is still left from the from Camp Toccoa. I'm sure they probably had a runway because they were training paratroopers, so I'm sure they had to take them up in planes to actually train them jumping out of planes and stuff. But anyway, we're going to get started on this museum. Here's a display of several local artists from the Toccoa area. This plaque shows some of the musicians like Theodore Roosevelt Sisk Sr., then they have the Toccoa Symphony Orchestra, which I've never heard of, and then Milkshake Mayfield, trumpeter and flugelhornist extraordinaire down here. And you can stop the video at any time if you want to read more information about these artists. Here's a a large poster of Milkshake Mayfield. Over here we have a rather large display of a traveler's rest, which is, according to this, is in the Toccoa area, 4339 Riverdale Road, Toccoa, Georgia, is where this, and Teresa has actually wanted to go over to this thing. This inn used to sit, according to the history, on the Unicoi Turnpike, right here, as you can see on this placard. And this little sheet here of information about it says Travelers Rest State Historic Site. This stagecoach inn and plantation home was built around 1815 by James R. Wiley. He's strategically located along the newly constructed Unicoi Turnpike, a busy highway over the Appalachian Mountains. Wiley operated the inn until 1833, when he sold it to his neighbor, Devereux Jarrett, the richest man in the Tugelo Valley. Jarrett continued to operate the inn, but doubled its size to make it the home place of his 14,400-acre plantation along the Tugelo River. 3 generations of Jarrett inhabited the site until the state of Georgia purchased the remaining few acres of the once vast plantation for $8,000 in 1955. Thanks to both its architecture, significance, and its role in the early history of the area, Travelers Rest was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1964. Today, visitors can tour the home and see many original artifacts and furnishings, some of which are crafted by Caleb Shaw, a renowned cabinet maker from Massachusetts. And then it gives all the information about when it's open and the mission. Mission is only $5.50 for adults and $4.25 for seniors. Youth is $3.50, and group rates arranged in advance. And it gives all the other information. Yeah, one of these days, me and Teresa are going to go over there and see this place. I'd like to see it. It looks like but this is just a replica of it here. A scale replica, and as you can see, you can stagecoach or wagon, horse and wagon thing over here to the side. So very interesting. Got Old Tugelo Town, which looks like might have been what Toccoa is today, but this is definitely Cherokee Indian territory through here, and it looks like you got British Army negotiating or talking with the natives, the Cherokee Indians, in this mural that they have painted here. And then you got Old Estato Village, and then the names of the Cherokee clan over here on to the side of the mural. And then this is probably what it would look like back in its day. Cherokee tribes that lived in huts like this, possibly. Or this could have been earlier Native American tribes that lived here. Not really sure. There is a thing right down here you can push.
Yo, how is everybody? Welcome to 2 Cherokee villages in the lower settlements during the late 1700s to early 1800s. Old Tugelo Town is depicted in the mural, and Estato Village is illustrated in the diorama. Our villages consisted of round and rectangular lodges made of wattle and daub surrounding a council house. The council house is made with 7 sections, one side for each clan. The Old Tugelo Town mural depicts the alliance of the Cherokee with the British during the time of the American Revolution. Estato Village was considered the most fortified town because of the Tugelo River to its right and a moat to the left with sharpened light wood stakes. The Cherokee are considered one of the 5 civilized tribes and are related to Iroquois, both from whom are matrilineal societies, tracing the lineage of the mother. Cherokee families were hunters and gatherers combined with subsistence farming. After contact with Europeans, trading became a popular commodity. Animal pelts, especially deer skins, were traded for metal tools and firearms. At its peak, The Cherokee Nation ranged from the Appalachian Mountains to the Piedmont of present-day Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. The population of the Cherokee Nation varied. The smallpox epidemic of 1738 caused the population to drop around 7,000. By the time of the Cherokee removal to Oklahoma in 1838, called the Trail of Tears, the population was around 17,000 in the east, with most living in North Georgia, northern Alabama, and North Carolina. The eastern band of Cherokee presently live on 56,000 acres in Cherokee, North Carolina, known as the Cherokee Indian Reservation.
Over here you've got some early furnishings for homes as the settlers came in and settled this area. As you can see, I've got a spinning wheel here. And cotton was king at one time here in Georgia. Not so much up in the North Georgia area, but definitely in Middle Georgia and South Georgia, where there's a lot more flat land down there than there is up here. There wasn't a whole awful lot of flat land being in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, but as you can see, there's quite a bit of historic furnishings here that probably came out of local homes at one time. A lot of this may have been handcrafted, I'm sure. But this is just a glimpse of what might have seen here in the North Georgia area back in the early settler days. And this display shows the early history of train travel through the North Georgia area. And I was just reading a plaque over here that talks about the Southern Railway excursion train. And I'll zoom in on it so you can see it better here. But it was talking about the Southern Railway excursion train and dining car menu from the last meal served on the Southern Crescent on January 31st, 1979. The rail line became known as Amtrak, as it was the Crescent trains number 19 and number 20 that now operate from New York, Washington, D.C., Taccoa to New Orleans. And it still runs through here, but it's all known as Amtrak now. Back over there, you see a dinner setting for probably the Southern Crescent that used to run through here, and very historic. There's a lot of people, including my brother, who's passed away a couple of years ago. He collected stuff like that from Amtrak and from some of the old rail lines that operated passenger service until Amtrak bought them all out. Here we have an old operator's console where they actually connected calls. You would call into the operator. You didn't have a phone that actually dialed a number. This is back in the days when you just picked up the line and you would click it a few times. I've seen it done on TV quite a lot. But then an operator would answer your line and then connect you to whoever you was wanting to talk with. And so they've had preserved this old operator's console. Pretty neat. And of course, anybody who... I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, and this is how you would dial the numbers, and you would turn that thing around for whatever number you was calling. Oh, this is cool. We've got an old drum phonograph, it looks like here. I think that's what that is. It's an old drum phonograph that probably used a wax film over a drum up here, and then you could actually record to it and then listen back to it. Very early days of the phonograph. Here in this case, you've got a statue of Paul Anderson, said to be the world's strongest man. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it was reported by the Guinness Book of World Records and Famous First Facts. He is said to have lifted the greatest weight ever raised by a human in his 1957 backlift of 6,270 pounds. Can you imagine that? That is just unbelievable. They had this big, and he was from the Toccoa area. In fact, they actually have a full-size, humongous statue of him in the park nearby. Coming down into the next area of the museum from the area that we were just in with the early days of Toccoa and some of the local heroes and musicians and people like that from the Toccoa area down in this area here, which is part of the military museum. I like this saying right here. It says, Hitler built a fortress around Europe, but he forgot to put a roof on it. Yeah, truer words were never spoken because the Americans and the British bombed the heck out of Europe and Germany during the war. But probably one of the main reasons that Germany and the Nazis lost World War II to the Allies. Here we have a parachute from the paratrooper soldiers, and yeah, can you imagine jumping out of a plane and relying on a piece of fabric like that to let you down? And of course, people jump out of planes nowadays just for fun and come down, and I've actually done it myself. I've actually jumped out of a plane, not by myself, but doing a tandem jump with a jumper, and it was fun. And I would probably do it again if given the chance, having the chance. But at least those type of parachutes, you can actually guide to where you want to go. These, you couldn't. You were just at the mercy of the winds. And that's what's scary. Jumping over Europe, occupied Europe, and floating down and being basically a sitting duck in the sky for troops on the ground, or even planes to come by and shoot at. That would be scary. Here's a plaque over here on this wall that gives a little bit of the history of Camp Toccoa. I won't read the whole thing, but it talks about Camp Toccoa and them getting started during World War II and all. The 4 regiments that trained at Camp Toccoa are the 517th Parachute Regimental Combat Team from 1943 to 1945. And here's the history of that regiment. The 511th Parachute Infantry Regiment, also from 1943 to 1946, and here's the history of that regiment. The 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment from 1942 to 1945. And the 506th Parachute Infantry from 1942 to 1945. So those are the 4 regiments that trained here at Camp Toccoa during World War II. Now, looking down this hallway, this wall here, these are some of the actual barracks that these regiments, the 501st, 506th, 511th, ones like that, stayed in while they were over in England. One of the employees of the museum was telling us that this was actually over in England, where they stayed, and they actually stayed in these barracks, and it was donated to the museum several years ago, and they took them apart piece by piece and brought them over here. And she said that when they were taking this apart, they found a lot of different artifacts that was left inside the walls that got stuffed in the walls whenever the paratroopers were staying here back during the war. And so there was a lot of artifacts that came out of this building right here that are part of the museum now, which is very interesting. We're in actually one of the rooms of the barracks, or I should say stables, because I think these were actually used as horse stables over in England before the military took them over and made them into barracks for the men of the paratroopers that were trained here in Toccoa. But anyway, these artifacts that you see in this case here were the items that I was telling you about that was found tucked away in the walls of these stables whenever they took them apart. As you can see, there's some more items over here as well. Very interesting. But yeah, these are some of the items that was tucked away in the walls of this stable. And as you can see, it does look like a stable on the inside. Got these little slotted vents up here next to the windows and all. So I think this probably was, they call them stables, and I guess it probably was stables at one time. So you can imagine staying in something like this. I bet it was very cold and had a lot of breezes that blew through, because I'm sure it wasn't very insulated for men. Here's a portrait, a picture of some of the men of the regiment fixing to jump out of a plane back during World War II. You can see some of the military planes in the background flying alongside of them. Now here's one of those stables that is set up like a barracks, and there would be four infantrymen that would use these barracks. And as you can see, there's a little stove over there against that back wall. And it looks like they only had blankets that they put up for privacy. This is probably very similar to how they would actually set up their barracks, so to speak, their stable. Cases of items here that were donated to the museum by some of the people who I'm sure probably trained here at Camp Toccoa. That was donated to the museum, and they've got them in these cases. You know, you can see this belt down here, different things. Looks like a telephone. Let's see, what is that called? World War II U.S. Army EE-5 field telephone. That's a telephone, field telephone. Binoculars over here. Some sort of a light and knife. Probably, I'm sure, used at battle. And it looks like a little flashlight too over there in the corner. Here we have a couple of cases of rifles that I guess were donated to the museum. It comes from different armies around the world during World War II, I'm sure. Brazilian, Czechoslovakian, Serbian, Yugoslavian. Both of those are Yugoslavian, Spanish. But zoom in a little bit so you can actually see some of the plaques on those guns, but all of them look like, and I'm no gun expert at all, but all of them look very similar. I don't know if they're the same gun or not, but they look so similar looking at them. someone maybe in the comments can tell me if they are the same gun, just used by different militaries around the world. You even got one over here that's Israeli, but like I said, all of them look so similar. And then you got another case of rifles over here, military rifles. And then you've got another case over here that's got, probably looks like fully automatic weapons over here. Check this out. Looks like you've got hats and helmets, military hats and helmets of different axis powers. Get down here, Laura, so you can actually see it. But yeah, I'd say some of those are German. Definitely one over here, that black one, right? Let's see, I think it's right there, you can see it. That is a German Nazi. And I don't know what the other ones are. I would say they're probably German as well. And then you got a sword down here as well. Now here we've got a whole wall of different guns here, and then military. Now this looks like American military uniforms from different, well, I guess all of these are airborne, as they call them nowadays. And the different hats, some dress hats they would wear for formal occasions, and other ones they would wear as out in the field every day. But my dad actually has a jacket that's very similar to that one right there. They call it a flight jacket. It's a leather one, and it's still around actually. We actually have it. It's in storage right now since his death, but we actually do still have it. Very similar to that. But yeah, then you've got up here, like I was saying, you've got several different dress uniforms. That one in the blue looks more like what you might see the men wearing in today's Army or Air Force, possibly Army, but these other ones here look more like dress uniforms from back in World War II, because my dad actually had one. It's very similar. They call them pinks. It was more of a light colored tan, reddish tan, and that's why they call them pinks, but they were military dress uniforms they wore for formal occasion. Here's a booth area commemorating World War I right here. As you can see, World War I, the Great War. The war to end all wars, of course. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because World War II came along several years later. Here's a uniform from that era that the Army wore. Changed quite a bit since back in those days, with the jacket and the pants and the helmet. And here's a case of memorabilia from that war, actually a couple of cases. This one over here is lit up a little bit more than that other one to the left. Looks like that's pretty neat for back when. Oh, okay. Combat belt, where you would find the physician hypodermic needle kit. Okay. At first, I thought this was like a lighter with cigarettes stuck down in it, because the top flipped up, sort of like the old time Zippo lighters. but that is hypodermic needles and a syringe, and what this says, World War I, the combat belt where you would find the physician hypodermic needle kit. The small left pocket contained only 2 items, a hypodermic syringe kit and a case for extra needles. The manual for the medical department, 1916, corrected in 1918, states this syringe is now issued has as accessories, besides 2 needles and extra wires. The needles and wires are expendable. 1 tube of each of the following hypodermic tablets. The tablets were all dissolved in injectable form of ampomorphine and atropine, cocaine, morphine, nitroglycerin, and something. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one. Each variety were kept in small, amber-colored corked vials that blocked sunlight that would dilute the strength. So anyway, I guess that was for in case you got hurt, you could give yourself an injection of some sort of painkiller to help with it, or someone else that came along might help you be able to use that on you to help kill the pain. This is very interesting. This was a portable pump organ that was used by chaplains on the front lines during World War II. Antique Etsy chaplain portable field pump organ, military green, 1925 to 1930. Now I'm not going to read the whole thing, but suffice it to say that they must have used this, well, at least near the front lines, maybe not on the front lines, but near the front lines, where they could have services, religious services for the men in the Army and whatever else, Marines and all. But they carried those. You can see the handle there on the front, and they could probably fold it up and collapse it down and be able to carry it almost like a suitcase with them. You know, they have different booths set up for different wars throughout the years. This one here is World War II. Of course, the majority of this whole military museum is about World War II and the parachute infantry regiments that fought during that war, especially around D-Day. But they have different things here. Artifacts and all from that war. Plus, then you get over here to the Korean War. I have another. And you actually have a plaque over here that's dedicated as a salute to the women of the Korean War. Prisoners of war and missing in action at the Korean War. Here's a military uniform that was very, very prevalent during that era, that war, and the different phases of war, of the Korean War. And here you've got a display for the Vietnam War of artifacts and memorabilia from that war. And of course, a lot of these regiments that was from Taccoa probably fought in those wars, but by that time, the Camp Toccoa was shut down because it was decommissioned back in, I think, the 40s after World War II was over. And the land was actually sold off to a private owner. And then he sold it off for industrial purposes. I think they built a couple of plants over on that in that area of old Camp Toccoa. Well, we've made it out to Camp Taccoa, just outside of about 4 or 5 miles outside of downtown Taccoa, not too far. And as you can see, there's an iconic C-47 military plane that they used a lot for paratroopers back during World War II. They used them extensively during D-Day as they dropped troops in Normandy during that time. And of course, anybody who knows much about aircraft, the C-47 is the military's version of the DC-3, Douglas DC-3, and it was used extensively for air travel for civilians. And yeah, it's a workhorse, and there's still ones of these military, well, not military, actually the DC-3s that they've used around the world, and there's still a few of them, a handful of them, that are still in use to this day. And you can imagine how old those things are now. Yep, the C-47. But yeah, we decided to come on out here and take a look at the, there's not much, they said, left of the original Camp Toccoa, but there is one building they said that is original. I think it is a concrete block. It may be down here at the end of this road. Now, these buildings that you see along through here, I think are replicas of the barracks that they used during their training during the time. Now, that being said, when they first bought the land, when the U.S. government first bought this land and turned it into Camp, I keep wanting to say Camp Pendleton, Camp Taccoa, for instructing paratroopers, regiments, they actually, there was only dirt roads on the base, and the barracks, they didn't have barracks really at the time. They only had tents, and so it was pretty miserable. Now let's go on in here and see what they got. Oh yeah, this must be the museum, small museum. And this is a bed that they would have used, I'm sure. But yeah, they turned this one into an actual museum. Now this is the gear that they probably would have worn during their jumps. All the different ammunition belts. That's what I was trying to think of back at the other museum. Ammunition belts. All those little pockets they would keep ammunition in, probably clips for their automatic weapons. They would put in those things. Now here's, I don't know what these dioramas are. This diorama is portraying the battle for the bridge over a canal where the 101st Airborne was assigned to block the reinforcement of the German troops. This diorama was made and donated to Camp Toccoa at Currahee by MSG Gregory Queen. Now here's a picture of what the camp probably looked like years ago when it was actually being used in a snowfall. You can see the gate. And I'll have to take a shot of the gate out there myself because I don't think I got that gate though is still there. The fencing is not, but the gate is. Now this building right here is one of the original buildings that was on site whenever Camp Toccoa was open back in the early, I think it was late 30s or early 40s that they opened up. And I was reading some history about it at the last museum, and they said that this was one of the only original buildings that was left on site. Now the rest of the buildings that we looked in, there were replicas of the barracks and buildings that was here. There are some, I was also reading some plaques out front on some of those other barracks that there are some parts in it, windows and things like that, that are original to the building, but the building itself has been reconstructed. It's a replica of them and all. So, but this is one of the original buildings right here. Camp Toccoa at Currahee. Teresa told me that you can actually go in this plane, and sure enough, right there is the door that you can go in. Now, looking at the front of it, it looked pretty good shape, but on the back of it, you can see the flaps, or the, I should say not the flaps, because the flaps would be inboard, but the ailerons. That's what it's called. Sorry, it's been a while. Been a minute. The ailerons on the outside, or at least on this wing, is gone, and it looks like it's pretty rough shape on this back end. I don't know what happened, but yeah, they got some major damage right here where the trailing edge of the wing is all tore up and bent up and everything. I don't know if that was battle damage. And the wing over here, I think this is where the flaps would have been, and it's completely missing. And the trailing edge that would made up to the flaps looks like it's all jagged and everything. But we're going to climb in here and take a look on the inside. Now they got wood down here. They've probably done that just to make it cheaper and where people could come in here and look around. But you can imagine that they'd have these jump benches in here, and the guys would be all in here piled up against one another. And this is really neat here. Okay, wow, that's a little bit sketchy right there. Doesn't say not to come up here, but there's still some of the instrumentation up here. This is really neat. This is really neat to see the inside of basically a DC-3 or C-47 military version, which is this military version. Of course, the main difference is on the military version, they didn't have windows for passengers to look out in them. Basically, all solid steel or aluminum, I should say, until you got up to the back door, and they had that wide back door back there, and that would be where they would jump out at. But this is really neat. And of course, you can go all the way back here to this access door that leads out into the tail section back here. And imagine what it would be like if they took a bunch of shrapnel back here, or hits from guns and all. But yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah, and here is the tail end of the plane. All the control surfaces are gone on it. Wingtip, the things back here, control surfaces back here on the back. Even the tail, the rudder, is missing on it. A lot of pieces missing on this plane. It's definitely not airworthy by any means. But at least it does still have the props on it on the front. Front looks pretty good. Yeah. Well, this concludes our day here in Toccoa, Georgia at the Currahee Military Museum. I have to look that up because I cannot remember that name to save my life. Currahee Military Museum in downtown Toccoa, and now here at Camp Toccoa, where they train paratroopers here at this camp during World War II, specifically for D-Day. So anyway, we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up if you would. And for more similar content, please consider subscribing. And with that said, we're going to get on out of here, going up Mount Currahee, drive up the mountain, Currahee Mountain, or Mount Currahee, and see what that's about, since we're right here at it. So anyway, with that said, God bless, and we will see you in our next video. bonus footage. We are now at the top of Currahee Mountain, up above Camp Taccoa, and looking down into, well, I'm not really sure exactly what we're looking down at. I don't see any town around here. It looks like Taccoa is probably back off the camera. But anyway, this is a beautiful, beautiful, we're not really at the very top of the mountain, but come up here to these rock outcrops and stuff right here. And this is just an absolutely beautiful scenic overlook right here. Just absolutely beautiful. We came up by it one time, started to stop, but that wasn't, we thought, well, that's not the very top of the mountain. So we took on off, went on just probably maybe 500 yards on up the mountain and dead-ended into a big antenna array up there, right on top of the mountain. And there wasn't really any views from up there, so we came back down here. Started this one time and screwed it up, couldn't remember the name of the mountain, and went over to the truck to get my phone. By the time I'd done that, then there was a group of, looked like scouts, kids and stuff that were coming up here to take some pictures. So I waited on them to do their thing. It didn't take them long. And then I jumped back out and decided to get this. So anyway, bonus footage. Just thought I'd catch this and take it on to the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it.